I'm thrilled to welcome JB Zeilke, better known on Instagram as the Lost Cowboy. By his early 20s, he had cowboyed on 6 continents, from Argentina to Mongolia, Mexico to Australia, and everywhere in between. His journey became the memoir The Lost Cowboy, released in 2023, where his chronicles nail-biting adventures, tackling mavericks, navigating gunfights, and even herding reindeer in Mongolia. The book opens a window into the similarities and the profound differences among cowboy cultures worldwide. It earned critical acclaim, including a foreword by Culture Wall and a 2024 Spur Award for Western Writing. Beyond the page, JB has carved a unique place as a videographer and a creator of the Dusty Vaquero Days, bringing authentic cowboy experiences to life for a global audience. His tales are equal parts harrowing and heartwarming. Think little old men on reindeer, hillside rodeos across continents, and a deep appreciation for the vanishing tradition of the true cowboy way of life. JB, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
It only took me 9 times to get that intro right.
You nailed it.
You know, I maybe didn't, but we're going to act like I did, and we're going to use it. So JB is here in Montana. We are at Cowboy Mike's house. This is his, I don't know, part of his barn. What is this?
This is his horse barn. And this Mike has always been kind of a home for drifters and people like me. And so I've slept in his horse barn.
Have you really?
I couldn't even count how many. Yeah, that's my room right over there.
Is there a couch in there?
Yeah, there's a couch. There used to be a bed, and this place flooded. You can see the flood line.
I remember when it flooded.
And it washed my bed down the river, but we got a new one.
Dang. Did you come to help him after?
No, I was here the week before, and then I can't remember where I didn't get back up here once all that had gone down. But yeah. There was quite the cleanup effort here.
I remember that. I wasn't living here yet, but we have a little cabin on Tom Minor where that bridge washed out. Mm-hmm. And that was crazy. We had to take Old Yellowstone to get there for 2 years after that.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't repaired the bridge. And that's the only way to get there is from 89 anyways. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Glad we made it work.
Yeah, me too. So my intro obviously kind of lined out a lot of things about your life. And I kind of hit on pieces of it, but I'd like to hear kind of how you got your start. And I know you're from the Western states. You're from Colorado, but spent a lot of time in Wyoming. So I'd like to start there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I spent 10 years of my life in northern Colorado, not that far from Wyoming. And then I ended up going up to Wyoming for college. And it's kind of a weird story of how I ended up. When I was a little kid, I just wanted to be a really good cowboy. So I worked for this lady for free, just taking care of her horses, learning how to use all the stuff. And there was these people that would come around, and I'd see them wearing University of Wyoming Cowboys gear. And I didn't know as a little kid what that was. And so I asked somebody, I said, what's the Wyoming Cowboys? And they said, well, it's a college, and that's just what it is.
That's their mascot, yeah.
Well, they didn't say that's their mascot. They said that's what they are. So for a long time, I thought that was a college you went to learn how to be a cowboy.
That would be rad.
So growing up, that's what I really wanted to go there. And then obviously I learned that wasn't true, that's what it is. But still, that was kind of stuck in my mind that's what it was. So I ended up getting multiple scholarships for different schools, or offers, I suppose, to be on the rodeo team. And as soon as UWs got there, I was like, done. I'm going there.
What was your rodeo event?
I rode bulls.
Cool. And you hung that up a little bit ago, right?
Yeah, it's been a while now. I had a really bad wreck in Casper that dang near killed me, and I continued to ride after that. But it wasn't the same. Like you can't be afraid getting on bulls. Yeah. And when your mindset changes from I'm here to win to I'm here to not die.
Yeah.
Like you should hang it up. So it took me 6 or 8 months of riding that way and getting hurt more before I just said, okay, that's enough of that for me.
A stubborn cowboy culture of I'm not quitting yet.
Yeah. You don't want to be a sissy. So but it's a lot of rodeo is it certainly is about skill, but it's also a mental game. So if you're not mentally prepared, then you don't need to be getting on at all. You need to go take care of the mental aspect first. before you get back on.
That's huge. I think more people need to hear that, especially younger guys that are just starting out. Because I think that don't be sissy mentality. There's something to be said there for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think when it comes to like your health or mental health, that it's like a check engine light that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, big time. And cowboys generally don't tap the brake pedal. Like it's full throttle all the time. Mm. And part of that is helpful. I mean, it makes you tougher. It makes you able to continue to compete. Like you do have to work through broken bones and torn muscles and all that stuff. Like that's part of the game. But mentally, it's a different thing. Like you generally can't just power through something like that. So that's something that and I think people are getting better at it. But there's also a lot of people that want to be rodeo cowboys now that probably don't, that shouldn't be. Mm. Like saying you're a rodeo cowboy sounds cool. So there's lots of, I think people find out the hard way that's, it's not just a thing to do to tell people at the bar.
Right.
You'll get
to
hurt.
Pick up girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last bull that you got pretty hurt on, do you remember its name?
No, I don't remember his name. I know exactly what he looks like. He was owned by D&H Cattle Company. I believe they're out of Oklahoma. They haul bulls to the NFR every year and stuff. And this bull was not a mean bull. He was a little yellow muley. He had a fuzzy head, no horns. And I got thrown straight up in the air, and he spun underneath. I was in the air so long that he almost made a full rotation. And when I came down, I hit his back. He kicked up as I was coming down, and he kicked me right in the back of the head. And so I was out cold, like 4 or 5 feet off the ground, and then hit the ground from 5 feet up, stiff as a board. And my brain, I don't think I was breathing, or they couldn't find a pulse. So they were like, I came back to on a backboard in the middle of the arena, and I don't remember it, but I started like immediately swinging. Wow. Because I guess that's common with head injuries, that people become violent when they kind of come back to consciousness. And they're holding me. There was there's people, my friends are kneeling down, like putting their hands on me, like praying, thinking I'm dead. And then there's paramedics trying to hold me down to strap me onto a board. And then when I woke up, it was just like a pile of people on me. So I freaked out and started just swinging.
Dang. What good friends, though, that they were like, hey, we don't know what else to do. Let's cover him in prayer. Yeah, let's lay hands right now.
That's all they could think of. But I don't remember any of this. One of the photographers that was there sent me an email like a week later. He's like, hey, don't open these if you don't want to see it. Wow. But this is everything that happened. There's people crying in the stands in the background and all kinds of stuff. So it was pretty scary to see those pictures. Like,
was your family there?
No.
It's probably good.
No. Yeah, it was just my friends that were there. But yeah. So that was kind of the beginning of the end of my rodeo career.
How old were you then?
I think I was probably 21.
Yeah, it's young. That's
20,
a lot.
21, yeah.
Gosh.
I started getting on bulls at like 13. So at that point, I've been going for
a long time.
Long enough.
Yeah. Your body was probably over it anyways. Grateful that, man, that's gnarly. You don't remember that at night at all?
No. The first thing I really remember is being in the hospital and them putting me in that tube. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that's, a CAT scan or something?
MRI, I think.
MRI,
yeah,
maybe.
The one that you go back in.
They injected me with something. They're like, it's going to feel like fire in your veins, and then we're going to stick you in this tube. And so whatever that was, they were looking at all the bleeding on my brain and stuff. But that was...
Did you continue to have brain bleeds for a little bit?
I don't know. I did the typical stupid cowboy thing of never going back to check on it. So I didn't die, so I figured that was good enough.
My friend Ellie, if you do come with us later to the shoot, you'll meet her. But if not, no problem. But she got a really gnarly snowmobile accident and had super bad brain injury. And she went to this really cool clinic. I don't know if it's something you're interested in doing later on in life, but because you're fine now. But if you ever were interested, there's a really cool brain clinic. They handle a lot of athletes, and it's amazing. They do way more scans and way more integrative health stuff than the average doctor or hospital would do, because that's all they do. It's a cool guy. I'll send you his info later.
That would be interesting. I've probably had, that was the worst one, but I've probably had 14 or 15 concussions.
Dude.
And I wonder about the, like I've got friends who have had pretty severe head trauma, and it changes you as a person.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder who I would have been without all those injuries.
It's kind of a sad thought.
I don't know. I think it turned out pretty good.
Well, you're great. So like who you are is amazing, but it's kind of a sad thought of like, who would I have been?
Yeah, we'll never know. But it's something I think about because it certainly changes a lot of, it's different for everybody, but it changes who you are when you turn your brain into jello like that.
Gosh, I can't imagine. I like had some minor health thing near my pituitary gland in my brain. And they were like, have you ever had a head injury? I'm like, I've fallen off a lot of horses, but like not anything like that. I've not been met in the air by the back of some bull's legs. Like that's not been my experience. I've fallen off just probably like, I've been riding since I was 7. So like the average horse girl amount. All my horses were really broke. But I've been on a few fresh horses that didn't like me on them. So that went differently. But definitely not injuries like that. I can't imagine. But cool that you are. I mean, praise God that you're still here. And I wish so badly you could remember that night, because I wonder when you were like technically dead, like what you experienced.
I remember that.
You do?
Yeah.
Would you talk about it?
Yeah, it's not what you think it is.
I want to hear.
I do remember like from that, because it was so odd to me that when I technically was dead or whatever happened to me, I was a fish. I was Nemo from Finding Nemo. I was like living in coral and talking to turtles and stuff.
That's for real?
It's not some enlightening moment.
You didn't go meet the Lord in heaven. You were Nemo.
No, I came back as a fish.
Were you just watching that movie before? Like, why was that? I wonder why that was in your brain.
I don't know. It's a good question. But that's all I remember is just like thinking, why was I like dreaming about that or whatever it was? Right.
Whatever that was. Dang, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, people expect it to be some like enlightening, crazy thing, but it was
Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, actually. Okay, so we talked about growing from Colorado, going to UW. Mm-hmm. Was rodeoing, I guess, while you were in college? Because you're on the rodeo team. That checks out. Did you graduate UW?
I did.
What was your major?
I have a degree in veterinary science, like pre-vet, and then ag business. I thought I wanted to be a vet when I first started, and I'm not smart enough for that. In retrospect, I'm glad I didn't do that, because I have a lot of friends that are vets, and it's just a really hard way to make a living, and you're lumped in with all the small animal people too. Mm-hmm. So, there's a huge demand for large animal vets in the United States, but it's because there's not a bunch of people that want to do the large animal type of work. Right. But you still are held at the same standard as the super competitive small animal stuff. So it
doesn't seem fair.
The vet back home mentioned to me, he was like, man, I really think they should split it. Yeah. And like have that be two separate. Either you are large animal or you're small animal. And it would probably, I don't know.
Do people do both?
I mean, technically, you learn both when you go.
Okay, you're saying school should be split.
Yeah, so that it's not like if everybody wants to be dog and cat vets, then it can be super competitive for that field. Yeah. But there's a huge shortage of young people going into veterinary type stuff. Yeah. Nowadays, and so those people should be a different kind of class or set of standards to get them in, because you're just getting kicked by horses and like arm deep in a cow, preg checking and stuff. Like it's hard on your body. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole kind of different occupation almost.
I wonder if Wyoming does a good job of like allowing them to go on to the ranches and like shadow and see if they're going large animal, to see if that's what they want.
Yeah. Wyoming doesn't have a vet school.
They don't. You just did pre.
Just pre-vet.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's another part of that is I think there's only like 18 vet schools in the country.
That's crazy. So
Colorado State's really good. Washington State's really good. But basically, when you apply to vet school, it's slimmed down considerably. Even if you're the top of your class at University of Wyoming, you might be mid-pack because there's 15 other universities that kind of funnel into these other
the bigger schools.
Yeah.
They should do something about that. They should make more vet schools.
They should.
They should.
And it's very expensive, and you're in debt until you're 50.
I feel like that's like same with medical school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Med school, dental school, vet school, all the same.
Man, that ain't it. I don't like school at all.
Yeah.
I didn't ever enjoy it. I like the social aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I like hanging out with people. Being in one building, not in college, but being in one building in high school, middle school all day is so boring.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do they make us do this? It's jail.
Yeah. I mean, I don't use either of my degrees. I never have. I've never had a resume.
That's all you're doing now?
No. I mean, even though technically I was ag business and I was learning business things, I don't remember, and I own businesses now. I don't remember the last time that I was like, oh, I remember learning this in school. Never. Like
you learn as you've gone.
You learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so like real life experience. I think hopefully our education system one day gets back to like learning shop in school, and probably Western states still have that, but there's so many, I would say more often than not, public schools don't teach things that are like you need in real life.
Right. Yeah, we had
crazy.
We had wood shop. We learned how to woodwork. We learned how to weld. We learned how to fix cars.
In high school?
In high school.
In Colorado?
That was in Wisconsin. I did
That's
2
cool.
years of school there. And
That's
then
really cool.
we also had a business life skills class. So you had to know how to read a credit card statement. You had to know how to balance a checkbook.
I still don't know how to do that.
It's I don't know.
I'm just joking.
As long as you don't not do it, it's fine.
People would say I don't know how to do that. Maybe I just do it anyways. That's so cool that you got to learn actual real life skills.
Yeah.
That's what we need more of. And I hope that America gets back to that. But if I have kids one day, if that's what God blesses me with, I feel like I'll have to homeschool because I want to teach them things that actually matter. Mm-hmm. And I don't want them like getting fed information that is useless.
Right.
So hopefully my husband is just really smart because like we just talked about, school is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
No, ideally it'd be cool to have like a big piece of land and have like a kind of commune, like have friends and family and all do like homeschool together.
Yeah. I have friends that do that. They'll pitch in and hire a teacher.
That's smart.
A bunch of families.
I think that's like the way to do it, especially if you're all living nearby or on the same piece of land or something, which, yeah. Have you been following the stuff about forest land getting sold or like proposing to get sold?
I've seen, no, not closely, but I've been seeing a bunch of it. I had a friend, my friend Jake Hutton over in Jackson that has been battling this stuff because I forget what they call that. There's a parcel. I don't want to say too much about this because I can't remember all the facts and I don't want to say the wrong stuff. But basically there's a piece of land that's state owned in Jackson that he's been running an outfitting business on. And people realized how valuable it was because it is beautiful looking over the Tetons. And I don't know how it's worth a pile of money.
Especially being in Jackson.
Right on the edge of the park. Like it's as good as you're going to get. And there was proposals about building a huge resort on it and all this. And right now it's his horse pasture. But he's been fighting it because I don't know how all that works, but the same thing, like selling off public land for profit. It's
so sad to me. I just I hate that. I hope that doesn't continue to happen as a trend. And I'm really hoping that, those bills don't get passed because I would hate to see that happen.
Yeah.
Especially out west. Like that is public hunting land and that is places that people have camped for decades with their family or they were taken there as a kid and they take their kids now. And I would hate to see that lose.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at Texas. Texas is like 99.9% privately owned.
Wow.
And for me, I live in a van. I spend a lot of time on public land, like parked out, camping, do all my hunting on public land, like all that stuff.
You asked me a picture of your van to put in right here.
Yeah, we'll get the van in there.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the old town and country. But
that is so cool.
You go to a place like Texas where there's no public land, you can't do that. You can't live that way. You can't hunt unless you know somebody that owns a place. You can't, camp out. You've got to know people or pay.
Sad. Mm-hmm. I hate that. So getting back to you, sorry, it took us on a little tangent.
That's all right.
I tend to do that in real life. So I guess let's get on to like after college and what that looked like for you and like how you ended up cowboying in 6 different continents, because that's pretty dang wild.
Yeah. So after that bull riding wreck happened, I hung it up, but I didn't know what to do. Like it was left a big hole in my life. So I watched it. I saw a YouTube video of these guys catching bulls in Australia. And so I was thinking, man, that would be really fun to go do that. But I had never left the US. I didn't even have a passport. I'd never seen the ocean. Like I had stayed. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so we didn't take vacations. We didn't go see stuff. If we did anything, it was camping right around where we were. So I just hadn't seen much. And so I was like, I bet I could do that. So I started all the paperwork, got my passport, all that stuff. And then I needed to find somewhere where you could work and do that. And it just so happened there was a girl doing a study abroad program at UW. And I asked her if she could get me a job like that. And she said, no, all of you Americans ask that. And then I stick my neck out for you, give you contacts, and then you make me look bad because you don't go. So I had to do some persuading to finally get her to give me a name. And it turned out it was her brother owned a business. That's what he did for a living, was catch wild bulls. So
what?
That's
a good person to talk to.
It was just pure. Yeah, I was very lucky that, because most Australians don't know people that catch bulls for a living.
That's not common. Yeah.
She just happened to have an older brother that did it. So she put me in contact with him. He was emailing me off a sat phone. Because now satellite stuff is not so bad, but back, that was in 2014. So there was satellite technology, but it wasn't very good. Like once I got there, I saw what he was dealing with. And like, you had to stand there, you had to plug your iPhone into this great big thing that was like some kind of satellite thing. And you'd turn and face it perfectly towards Asia to the north. And then it would bounce off the Asian satellites and go wherever it's going. So
did you end up doing that with your sat phone? Is that how you knew that?
I watched him do it once I was there. We had to call, I don't remember what happened, but we had some emergency where he had to call out of there. And it was, I got to watch him then, like try and use that sat phone. And
Did someone get hurt? Like that kind of emergency?
I think so. We all got hurt pretty bad at one point or another in Australia, but I don't remember why exactly he needed to make a phone call. But I was like, oh, that makes sense why you weren't emailing me back.
So you got in touch with him. You're like, hey, when can I come out?
Yeah. And he gave me no information. And he said, just be at the Kawanyama airport on this day at this time. So I started doing all the Googling and stuff I could to figure it all out. I figured out my visa, all that, my passport, bought the flights. Then I had to fly into Cairns and then take the mail plane out to Kawanyama.
Were you the only like regular passenger in the mail plane? There
was 2 guys that were government contractors that built houses on Aboriginal land. Like they went out there with the government, and the government, it's kind of like Indian reservations here where the government pumps a bunch of money into them. They were doing that with this Aboriginal community, which Kawanyama, where I was going, was an Aboriginal community.
That's really cool.
So these guys had worked out there and had crews building apartment type things or little housing structures.
Sure.
But they were pretty flabbergasted. They're like, what are you doing here?
Who's this guy?
Yeah, they thought
who's this American?
And then that plane just hauled like produce, mail, stuff like that.
Things out there.
It just did like a loop around to different little communities out there.
That's incredible. So your first time seeing the ocean out of the country, was it your first time flying? Have you flown before?
Yeah, I'd flown. I just hadn't flown that far.
Yeah, Cairns is really far. Going to France is pretty far.
It was, I think that was like an 18-hour flight or something. But I got lucky. I had to have surgery on my back right before I left. And so I was pretty heavily sedated.
That's nice.
I told the doctor, I was like, I didn't tell him what I was going to do. But I told them that I needed some meds to fly to Australia. So on the way over there, I popped some pills and I slept most of it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I thought you were going to say they upgraded you because they could tell you just had surgery. I was going to be like, that's sick.
No, I did have a doctor's note. And so there was, on that flight, it was a huge airplane. The back third had no people in it. But we didn't know that, so because they had closed the drapes. So after I showed them that, once we got everybody seated, they were like, "Hey, if you need extra room, come back here." So I had a whole row.
So you could
I
lay
just
down.
laid down on the row, and
That's
then it was
nice.
just me and a bunch of screaming babies and mothers. But they let us all have that like back third of the
That's
airplane.
nice. And you were pretty knocked out, so you weren't really hearing the crying.
Didn't bother me at all. No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you get to Australia, you land in this like tiny little airport, you get met by this guy. What's his name?
I got picked up by Archie, a guy named Archie,
Okay.
and I think it was Tommy. Archie and Tommy picked me up.
That's cool. It's pretty Australian names, I feel like. It's on par.
Yeah, he and those guys showed up like no shoes, no shirts, great big palm hats, and
No shoes, no
like
shirt.
little shorts, basically, just like covered in dirt.
That's what they cowboy did?
Yeah,
In shorts.
shorts, no shoes.
What happens? I guess you guys are on horseback, right?
Those guys were not
Okay.
generally. A lot of the stuff we did, you basically the horseback jobs over there was when you would put together a big bunch of cattle using machines. So you use helicopters and four-wheelers and dirt bikes and all that. And then obviously cattle are a lot more comfortable around horses. So you basically would pile all the cattle into one bunch, and then the horses would hold them and push them.
The last little bit part.
They would
Got
once they were made into a bunch, you would drive them down the trail, and then the machines would go out and start making big, like arms and pushing more. So you would start with like 40 head of cattle, and by the end of the day, they'd just keep adding, and you'd have like 2,000 head.
That's crazy.
But the horseback part, so it was basically that. The rest of it was you were on machines, like full throttle, chasing bulls through the bush.
That outfit is hilarious. The thought of that is really funny. And you're like, is this what I'm getting into?
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know what I signed up for, but I'm here now.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Cool. So how long did you do that gig for?
I was there about 4 months
Okay.
because I hadn't finished college yet.
So you had to
it
go
was
back.
basically my summer vacation. And then I went back and I had 1 semester left to finish my second degree. So then I just finished that and then I was done. But I knew if I didn't go back, then I would never go back.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it'd be hard to go back from that. Sounds kind of fun.
I was completely feral when I got back. Like my friends thought it was we went golfing one time when I got back and we ran out of golf balls on like the 3rd hole because we were all terrible. And I was like, "Don't worry, guys, I'll get us some more." And I was out swimming around in the
You just jumped
lake.
in?
Yeah, I just jumped in the lake and started gathering golf balls. Not a big deal, but like my manners and everything out the window, gone. And I was just like a feral dog when I got back.
That's kind of cool.
And smoking like roll your own cigarettes before
Yeah.
the hipsters started doing
Yeah.
that. That's what because cigarettes are super expensive in Australia. So all those dudes would roll your own. And it was so hard to find them when I got back. And there wasn't, a lot of people do it now.
Yeah.
But then it was just like,
Not
you had to go to
common.
boutique places and buy roll your own cigarettes. Yeah, I was feral.
That's kind of cool. So then which place did you go after that?
I finished school, and then somebody said to me that because they weren't bilingual, even though they had a master's degree, they couldn't get a job or weren't getting the jobs they wanted because they weren't bilingual. And I thought, that's not good. I don't know how to speak a second language. I just finished college. And so then I thought, well, if I want to learn another language, the only way I'm going to do that is by immersing myself. So I looked around. Mexico seemed way too dangerous to go down there. Brazil would have been very cool, but Portuguese, I don't know, would have been very useful to me.
Sure.
So then Argentina was the next best option. So I started looking for jobs in Argentina. Flew down there in January of 16.
Dang,
Went to
that's a long time
Argentina.
ago.
Yeah.
So what was their culture like in comparison to, like U.S. cowboys, but also like the Australians? Like how is that all different?
Well, the language barrier was the hardest part.
I bet.
Because I grew up around a lot of Mexicans or just Latinos that came here to work. And so I had heard a lot of Spanish. I didn't really know how to speak it. But being thrown into that where nobody speaks English was totally different. So that was tough right off the bat. And then another thing that I learned immediately is like we Americans really look up to cowboys, and it's a kind of a prestigious position and title to have. That is the complete opposite in Argentina. So the word,
it's like bottom of the totem pole.
bottom, very bottom. The word gaucho, they told me came from, I don't remember exactly. I think it's in Latin. It means orphan, or it's derived from the term orphan. Because you're just, gaucho kind of just means you're like a drifter. But gaucho down there doesn't really mean cowboy like we think of it. It's not a job title. Being a gaucho is like a class of people.
Oh, wow.
So there's gaucho women, gaucho kids, gaucho men.
Like a gypsy almost.
Kind of. So they were very looked down upon.
Wow.
Most of them were not educated in any way. They made very little money. And so when I told some people in the city, oh, I'm going to be a gaucho, they're like,
don't say that.
think twice about telling people that here.
They're like, you shouldn't say that.
They explained all that to me, that it's, even though it is at the end of the day, that's their cowboy, their agricultural people. It's not something really to be proud of.
Right. You don't brag about it.
Right.
Dang. Okay. So obviously in your book, we can read about like all these different stories, but something my friend McKenna was saying earlier that might be a good question is like, what about the pages in between the chapters that you don't talk about? That obviously don't talk about anything you don't want to, but like, how are you feeling every time? It might have been exhilarating and cool to be in different places, but did it ever feel lonely? Did it ever feel like, what am I doing? Like, how were you feeling experiencing all these different cultures, going different places? Like, I'm sure it was fun. And you got feral in Australia, and we haven't talked about the other continents, but yeah, what about the pages in between the chapters?
Yeah. I've always kind of like been a loner and a drifter. So there were certainly times when I was lonely, but probably not as much as other people would feel that. Like I really enjoy being by myself. So there was parts like that, but it was scary most of the time. That was the main thing, is it was very scary. The whole thing all the time was, you're really far from anybody or anything, you're a guest. You don't really have rights like everybody else does around you. Like and then on top of that, I was doing pretty dangerous work. So, there's not hospitals. There's no safety net to catch you. Like here, you could be on the top of that mountain over there, and if you break your leg, you hit a button on a GPS and they come get you with a helicopter. That's not the case at all in all these places. So that was kind of worrisome. And I did kind of think pretty hard, like, what am I doing with my life? Because all of my classmates finished college, went out and started like chasing these jobs that they thought that they wanted, and trying to use their degrees that they had just paid a lot to get and things like that. And I certainly questioned myself, like, what am I doing? My friends are all like talking about these resume building things and like all this stuff that I never really cared about.
Yeah.
And so that I certainly felt like I was getting left behind in that way. But and then I don't remember exactly. There's like type 1 and type 2 fun.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Type 1 is fun while you're doing it. Type 2 is not.
Yes. Yeah. Fun when you think about it after or something.
Yeah. It's fun when you look back.
Yeah.
Like running a marathon, not fun. Probably fun when I've never done that, but I'm guessing that's like the type of thing you look back on and say that was great. But it was mostly the latter, a lot of it was pretty miserable while I was doing it. And then looking back on it was fun. Some
of your favorite times in life you can look back on and say like, wow.
Definitely. And another thing kind of with the book, tons of people have brought up to me, like, how do you not have PTSD from some of these experiences? Because there was plenty of them where I missed death by that much.
I would love for you to share about one of those times too.
Yeah. Well, and it could have been as simple as like, there was several times in Australia where like bulls, untipped bull horns, the same ones that gut matadors all the time in bull rings, caught my shirt, but not my rib cage. Things like that, some people might have PTSD from. So, anyways, I think writing the book I didn't even realize it when I did it. It was kind of like a therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That was really why I started writing, is because I was, it's hard to process all that stuff.
I bet.
Especially that was in a 5-year span. 5 years of my life spent living out of suitcases, being super broke, and outrunning death as much as I possibly could. And I never really took time to sit down and think about it. So the writing process itself, like I started writing after I got caught up in a big gunfight in Mexico. The next day, I was like, I should probably.
Can I hear about that?
Yeah, it's in the book, but I was living with a Mexican family down there, and we went out working that day, and I worked with several young guys on the ranch. And afterwards, we went out and we were drinking some beers together and stuff up on the hill. And we were talking about life and what these guys wanted to do with their lives.
Cervezas, right?
Cervezas. Yeah, chilas, actually.
Okay.
But they, so anyways, we can hear off in the distance, boom, 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 like all these. And I was like, what is that? And they're like, oh, just kids playing with fireworks. That's whatever. Mexico's lawless. You can do whatever you want. So wouldn't surprise me. And then the boss calls and he said, do you have the gringo with you? And they said, yeah, why? And he said, get him home right now. So we go flying down off this big hill, down through town. It's all these like little dusty streets and adobe huts. Like it's a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. And we had the radio so loud that we couldn't hear what was happening in town. And so we're just flying through town, trying not to hit dogs and chickens and stuff in the road. And we get back to where I was staying with my boss's mother, who was like 80. And she opens the door as soon as I get there and slams it behind me and locks it. But she tried to lock it, but her hands were shaking so bad she couldn't lock it. And I asked her, why? What's wrong? She said, don't you hear what's going on outside? And I listened, and she whispered, she was like, armas, guns. And then it all clicked to me that was not kids playing with fireworks. It was a big gunfight. And so I texted my boss's daughter, who spoke English, because my Spanish was pretty good at this point, but I wanted to be sure I understood. She said, yes, listen to my grandma. You're not asking any more questions after this. We're not going to talk about it after this. And so grandma had me go into the back room and lay down below a windowsill, because the house was all like mud, brick, adobe, kind of stucco. And so it would have stopped a bullet. So they had me lay below the window. And she's like, don't get up until you don't hear the guns anymore. So I laid there for,
sweet grandma,
I don't know, 45 minutes probably, and just listened to the gunfight outside. And I'm laying on a concrete floor thinking, I could, a lot of what I've done could have killed me. And I thought, if a bullet comes through here, or if some guy kicks in this window and comes through here and shoots me, nobody knows these stories. And so I thought, I should probably start writing these down. So the next day after that I never asked about it again. I never brought it up.
Smart.
And that next day I started writing a little journal. Like it wasn't very in depth, but I just started keeping track of all this stuff. And so I wrote the entire book while I was night cabbing for my grandpa. And so I'd come home, I'd like make these little journal entries, and then went home and I'd sit, and in between 1 hour checks going out to check cows, I would sit in the barn next to a space heater and type out these stories on my laptop. And I did that for 2 calving seasons, had most of the book written at that point. And then the following 2 calving seasons, I edited the whole book as much as I could. I had some help, but I had to do all the like structural stuff by myself. And that sucks. Editing sucks. It does suck. Yeah, it does. So I had
It's the worst part.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that part. But I had a friend, it's kind of another long story, but
we're here for that. I love
she
long
went
stories.
She had just finished her degree in molecular, what the heck was it? Biomedical engineering. She just graduated from Stanford in biomedical engineering.
So smart.
Very, very smart. Smarter than me. And so she offered to help with the editing. So I kind of just got it mostly cleaned up, and she finished it up for me.
What a gal.
Yeah. She was very kind for doing that. So she she did that, and she also kind of did like she had just come from Stanford, which is a pretty like in the city liberal place, and so she was also kind of my sensitivity reader. That was like,
PC.
You might say that to your buddies, but maybe not in a book. And also, she would say like, you keep talking about this. I have no idea what it is.
Normal people won't know what that is.
Yeah. So she helped with that a lot. Where it's like, oh yeah, people don't know what a latigo is.
Yeah.
So she probably explained
sure.
things like that. So
the average person can understand it.
Right. So she helped a bunch with that sort of stuff, but it was mostly just me sitting in a barn writing
with the heater.
Down. With a heater, yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Gosh, that's so cool. I just feel like this translates well because you are a great storyteller, but yeah, your book I'm sure is phenomenal, and I'm buying a copy today. So I'd asked you if you had a few. You're like, yeah, I got a lot. Got a van full.
I always keep them in my van.
Yeah, I was like, perfect. That's so cool. So I know we touched on Australia and Argentina and a little bit of Mexico, but I kind of want to talk about Mongolia because that's really cool. And I think a lot of people don't understand that there is cowboying there differently, obviously.
Right.
But would you talk about that a little bit? And maybe your favorite story could be most dangerous, or could just be something really cool that happened over there?
Yeah. So Mongolia, Asia was the last continent I had to knock off my bucket list. I went to Sweden and I went to South Africa, and then I was sitting there thinking, where in Asia can I possibly go that has cattle and cowboys or something like that, their own version of it. And I thought about Japan because they raise all these Akushi cattle and Wagyu and all that comes from there.
Right.
But I could not find an inn over there. Plus, in retrospect, that would not have been as fun as Mongolia.
No.
But I saw a video on, I guess it was probably on Facebook, of these guys tripping down a wild horse out in the middle of nowhere and just jumping on it and riding it away. And I thought, that looks pretty cool. That's pretty cowboy.
I think I'll do that.
So I started investigating like what it took to go to Mongolia. And horses are very cheap there. You can buy good broke horses for $500.
I'm about to go there right now.
Yeah, they're great. They're super tough horses. Their
shipping costs might be a little bit more than that, though.
I bet it costs you $5,000 to get one back, but still cheaper than horses here.
How many hands are their horses? They're shorter?
They're smaller, and they are actually, I read something when I was there that they're not actually horses. People call them horses, but they're actually more genetically, they're closer to donkeys. They have one less. Do donkeys have one extra or one less set of chromosomes than horses?
I thought it was less, but then mules have that like weird mix.
They're missing half of a chromosome. Anyways, those horses over there are closely related to donkeys.
They're basically mules, is what you're saying.
Kind of. They're
like a hybrid.
Sort of. They are lacking a whole set of chromosomes.
Oh, okay, so they're not true horses.
Not true horses, but they are the original horses, like the Przewalski's horses from over there.
Wow.
And so they rode those things all across Europe and stuff, and then they ended up trading with the Vikings, and then you have your cool. Norwegian fjords, and you have your Icelandic ponies that all.
Did you ever get up there to Norway or Iceland?
No, Sweden, but not Norway.
You should go there next.
Maybe.
You should keep on going. Why not? Why stop?
That's the plan. I'm probably gonna do a round 2.
You should. You should.
I want to film it.
That's amazing.
So I haven't gotten around to. I've had several people interested in making a documentary out of it, but people say a lot of things that they don't mean. So it hasn't happened yet. Like
you're saying, it has to be the right person that's able to handle those conditions, because it's not this bougie 5-star hotel, and it's not room service, and it's not a bed most nights. And so, finding the right kind of person to be alongside of you would probably be hard, but I bet you can do it.
I'm sure. Even if I can't film it, I still would like to do it again, because there's a second round where I could go to a different country on every continent. There's still a lot more to see. And I'd probably do 3 rounds. Every continent has more than people realize.
You should. I think that would be really cool. And people, since you already have the first round out with your book, I think people will be like on the edge of their seat following along this time. And I hope you're able to get a crew with you. But even if you don't, what a cool experience to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't die this time, okay?
I'll try my best. I mean, at least if you die, it's cool to die doing something cool.
No, amen. That's exactly right. Something you love and something that's cool. I'm sorry, I think I interrupted your Mongolia story though. So you got over there and you were on these kind of cool horses that were like really
little
dope.
Short, super tough. So I never ended up buying horses. That's where I was going. My plan was to just buy a saddle horse and a pack horse and ride across Mongolia. And I had no idea what to expect. They don't even use the same alphabet. Like translating their stuff's very hard.
Wow.
And so I found a guy on Instagram named Eric that he is American and he lives over there half the year.
Wow.
So I hit up Eric and I was asking him questions and he was happy to answer them. He said, if you want, I'm putting together this trip to go live with the last people on earth that ride reindeer. And I was like, oh man, it was not cheap.
I bet.
And so he said, you have to pay your own way and everything. And it's not an easy trip. But he's like, you clearly know horses and you've traveled. So usually that's the two things that you need to know. And he said, I'm going to put together this little group and we're going to take some stuff up to these people and live with them and visit them. And I thought, well, how can I pass that up?
Right.
So
That's
I scrapped the idea of, I didn't have the money to buy horses and do that. So I went and did that with him, lived with the reindeer people. And
what is that people group called?
Tsaden.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of them left. Like they have a whole different language. They don't speak Mongolian.
Different like dialect and language altogether.
Yeah. And so they actually native, they're native to Mongolia, but also Siberia. And so for a long time, they went back and forth between the two. And then finally, Russia was like, you're not doing that anymore. Pick a side.
Dang.
So some of them are in Mongolia. Also, some of them are still up in that kind of Siberian region.
Cool. What's your favorite, like, just memory or story when you were doing that?
Probably, it was like the second day we were there. We went out and helped. I went with the men of their little camp, and we went out and cut down a bunch of trees for firewood. And they use this ancient old like Russian chainsaw that would run for, I don't know, like 30 seconds before the chain jumped off. And I couldn't believe this thing still worked, but it was still way faster than hand sawing these trees. So we went and cut down a bunch of trees and bucked them up so that we could pack them on the reindeer. And then we took a pack string of reindeer of like 6 or 7 reindeer. And you're riding one. I was riding one. They were all riding their own. And then we had a string of pack reindeer. That's so cool. And we packed a bunch of logs on them and hauled them back to it's not even a village. They live in teepees, so they just move all the time. But there's like 6 teepees in one spot. So we hauled all this wood back there. But on the way back, a huge thunderstorm came in, and we're high altitude, above tree line. We went to the top of tree line to cut the trees, and then went back up above tree line to go back to camp. And so we're up there in a thunderstorm, and there's lightning crashing down all around. Like it was so close that the hair on your arms and stuff was standing from electricity in the air. You're joking. You can feel it in your lungs when you're that close to electricity. So, anyways, we were riding back, and it was just pouring down rain, and I was like, this would be the coolest way to die. I was just giggling the whole time, and everybody thought, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you giggling? Why is this American laughing right now? He's about to die. Yeah. And that was probably one of my favorite moments of being out there, was just riding a reindeer through a thunderstorm. That sounds so beautiful. Yeah. God, that's cool. That's so cool. Gosh, I feel like we could talk stories for 95 million years, but I'm going to probably ask you 2 more questions, more about your personal life, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. I know you've talked about the toughest things you've been through, probably, at least when you were at different places, but what's like the one thing that you've been through in life that as you're walking through it, you were like, I don't know if I'm getting past this? And what'd you learn from that season? It was probably just kind of the battle with conforming to society. That was a pretty tough one to get over. because it's around you all the time, and people don't even have to say it to you. You just feel it, that you're supposed to conform to what other people are doing. So, I mean, that's still like an ongoing battle, because if you want to live an exceptional life, you can do that within the bounds of, societal regulations, but you can also live a very cool life outside of that and kind of break the mold. And if you do that, it's just going to be constant, like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. It's like being out in the pasture. Like if you want to live like there's no fences, you can, but you're going to hit a bunch on the way or jump them. So I think that just as a whole is the toughest thing. Is it's like constant, almost like fighting upstream against what everybody else is doing. And I don't really think that much about it now. I mean, I kind of learned from that because really, when I was doing all this traveling, it wasn't like a lot of people knew it was happening. It was really just a lot of old timers telling me to get a damn job and stop doing that. And so it was, I had no cheerleaders or like people patting me on the back. And so like living that way was just kind of going against what almost everybody I've ever known did.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a tough thing to swallow. But after having done that, now it's like I'm very fortunate that a lot of people have read the book and kind of know the story. And it's kind of flipped where people know it and think it's cool, but nobody thought it was cool when I was doing it. Like it was, my grandpa told me, he's like, I don't know why you never leave these mountains. He says, you can go 50 miles in any direction. You'll be in some of the prettiest country you'll ever see. He wasn't wrong, but I mean, that's how a lot of people think about life. Right. So now, even today, like not even from a traveling aspect, but all this music stuff that I do, it's like, it's completely against really what the whole industry does. I don't use the same channels that everybody else does. I don't just kind of break the rules and see what happens.
I love that. I want to make it out there next year. Yeah, my friend McKenna told me all about it, and I think it just didn't work because I think I was actually in Southeast Asia this year for it, which honestly, coming back, I've never felt more out of place. Being with the people I was there, doing what I was there. Yeah, coming back to a place that is so societally driven, like you were saying, with all of these like unspoken pressures, like you were saying. I never had felt that because I'd always lived within those boundaries. And then doing what I was doing in like one of the most poor places I've ever been, sitting with people on their floor, having some of the best conversations in my life, with a really hard language barrier as well. And having a translator kind of, but like you can just look in someone's eye and you can feel that love and connection and hospitality. And coming back to America where everything is so money and status driven, I feel exactly what you're talking about, but I've never been able to put that into words before. And when I was there for the first time in my life, I had the thought of, okay, God, if this is what you have for me and I'm not supposed to be a wife and a mom, I'll do it. Because I feel the most fulfilled here that I think I've ever felt in my life. Right. And this is so backwards for what the world says is right. And this is so backwards for what my family, my friends would say, like, this is not your path. Like, you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And so I really, on a deep level, and probably just because I've gone back recently, but on a deep level, feel what you were saying, because being over there, being in a different place where, society is not the same as America culture. And like, there isn't all this Instagram pressure of like, and there it doesn't matter who you are. It's like the coolest freedom, like you described. So thank you for putting that into words, because I don't think I had. People have asked me a lot about my trip, and I think I've given most people the same answer of like, I don't really have the words yet. But what you just shared really resonated with my experience. So thank you for sharing that. Man, that was so good. Okay. I guess we're probably wrapping up on, I don't know, we might have a little bit more time. McKenna, can you see what the time is, or Josh? Just so I know where we're at.
55 minutes.
Okay, cool. I guess I'll ask my last question now, which I'm sad because I'm like, there's so many more good stories. And I gave you a little bit of heads up on this question, but the question I always end with, if you could go back and look at JB in the eye at any given age and tell yourself one thing that you know now, what would you tell yourself?
I think, like, really at any age, I'll probably just tell myself that it's going to be just fine. Because I think that's a common question people ask too. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Kind of. 5 years ago, I was just getting back from Mongolia and very lost and had no idea what to do with my life. 5 years before that, I was just thinking about going to Australia for the first time. Those like 5 year chunks of my life, I couldn't have even imagined where I would have been 5 years later. And the last 5 years, now it's all this music stuff and owning a music festival. That was not even on my radar 5 years ago, like not even a little bit. So now if somebody asks me, where do I think I'll be in 5 years? I think wherever I'll be in 5 years is probably not even on my radar right now. Not even something I would ever think of. So because of that, like I just try and remind myself, like it'll be fine. It'll be better than you think it's going to be. And you don't see it coming. It just kind of, if you just keep swimming, you'll get somewhere.
Like Nemo.
Exactly, yeah.
Hey, maybe all of that was meant to tell you that.
Just keep swimming.
And you just didn't know it then.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Man, yeah, I feel like, obviously, if you guys haven't read his book, you should get a copy. If that didn't fire you up to read it, I don't know what will. I think I'm going to read it tonight.
Yeah.
I just remember goodness.
It's also on Audible. So if you're a listener, it's on Audible.
I love Audible. I'm a big Audible girl because I drive a lot too.
Yeah.
I don't have a cool van, but it's all right. Maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll be town and country rolling. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight and wisdom and sharing cool bits and pieces of your life with us.
Thank you for asking good questions.
Oh, thanks. I love questions, and getting to know people is my favorite thing in life. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon this. Mm-hmm. I did broadcast journalism in college and hated the news. Yeah. So I said, absolutely not.
Right.
But then this opportunity rolled around, and I have great friends that helped me start this thing up. So we're just starting. So hopefully, maybe in my 5 years, something unexpected happens.
You have no idea where you'll be in 5 years.
That would be really cool. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. And until next time on The Gold and the Grit, I'm Ian Christian.